Aloha, folks. You are listening to Inside the Desert Oasis Room, episode number 89. This episode is sponsored by Tandawai Rum. Since 1854, Tandawai Distillers has been producing quality rum from the Philippines. The indisputable history of their Philippine rum is the foundation of which the Tandawai legacy continues today. Tandawai Asian Rum is made with premium varieties of heirloom sugarcane grown in the Visayas region of the tropical island of the Philippines. It is the same Southeast Asian vintage canes that has been cultivated for centuries in the tropical maritime climate and rich Philippine soil, which makes Tandawai Asian Rum distinctly Filipino. Tandawai Rum also has lots of history in the tropical exotic cocktail era when it first began with Don the Beachcomber and his Filipino barmen in the 1930s. There's evidence that these legendary bartenders created some of the first tropical cocktail recipes using Tandawai Rum. For more information, go to tandawaiusa.com or stop by Tandawai USA's Facebook page. So a couple weeks ago, Jeff Beachbum Berry came down to the Tiki-Ti for a book signing for his recently released reissue of Sippin' Safari. Jeff was once a regular at the Tiki-Ti back when he was living in LA, and so it was great getting to chat with him and Tiki-Ti owner Mike Buhen Sr. about the good old days and what's happened since then with Jeff's journey from becoming a cocktail recipe sleuth to growing into a world-renowned author, mixologist, and owner of one of the planet's premier cocktail bars. As always, I hope you enjoy listening to this episode as much as we did bringing it to you. And if you did, hit that subscribe button. The podcast is free, and subscribing makes it easier for you to follow our adventures. Shares on your social media pages are always appreciated, and if you'd like to help support the show, go to desertoasisroom.com and click on the donate button. Every donation, no matter the size, helps keep this podcast coming to you every week. Okay, without further ado, here's Jeff Beachbum Berry and Mike Buhen Sr. coming to you live from the Sippin' Safari 10-year anniversary book signing at the Tiki-Ti.
Inside the Desert Oasis Room.
Test 1, 2, 3.
As Mike will tell you, the phone ring is quite loud.
I know. I heard it earlier. So.
Yeah, you heard it when we were in probably in Wilshire area.
You're right. Thank you guys for joining the show.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Tiki-Ti, Jeff.
Too long away. Happy to be back.
How does it feel to be home?
Like victory.
You know, what's funny is that there's always that statement when you walk in the door here, welcome home. And it really is a home away from home for all of us regulars. And like Jeff was here every week when he was living in LA.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so, you know, I'm sure being back is like it's either a deja vu or it's a homecoming or it's
all that stuff.
It's all that stuff, right? I have so many questions to ask you guys. I'm so excited to have you both on the show at the same time. As you know, our listeners know that we've had you on the show each individually in your own episodes, but to have you here together is kind of neat because now I can actually go back in time and we can talk to you about the days before the bum was the bum.
Yes, right.
Right? So,
well, it's a bum with a small b.
Little bum.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that I had that I don't know why I've never asked you this before, Jeff, which I'm sure a lot of people want to know was, do you remember the first time you walked into Tiki-Ti?
Oh, yeah.
You do? Can you
do.
tell us about that?
Yep. I was still in college. It was 1980. 79. It's 1979. It was not long after I turned 21 and could legally drink. And
you did it right.
Yeah. And this is one of the first places I went, just strictly by accident. I didn't know about it, but the girl I was seeing at the time, Kathy Sipe, we were at UCLA together. She lived around here, so she was interested in it, and we went in. And I had my first raisin steak at the age of 21 in 1979.
Now, did you come in here as somebody that just wanted a tropical drink, or were you already interested in the tiki?
I was, and Kathy knew that, and that's why she took me here, because ever since I was about 6 years old, I've been taken to Polynesian-themed restaurants, like out in the San Fernando Valley, and elsewhere.
Right.
But, always as a little kid, never been able to drink in one up until that point. So somewhere along the line, she found out that I liked that stuff. We must have been talking or mentioned it in passing. And she took me here. And it was just like, all right, where's this been all my life?
Right. What was your first impression when you walked in? What's the first thing that hit you?
The size of it, the intimacy of it, and the low light. We came at night, and it just seemed like a really cool hang. And you could smoke back then, so you walk into a smoke-filled, dark little tiki bar, and it felt like something out of a 1950s noir movie or something like that. And it was just really instantly cool vibe. Instantly fell in love with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Did you have an impression on Ray?
Ray, I was just another punter. I was like one of a bunch of, most of the kids my age or Kathy's age who were coming here were from USC. This was like sort of like a short hop for them. Yeah, and I was UCLA, so we had gone quite a distance to get here. So Ray didn't notice me. I was just one more Ray's mistake to him,
Yeah.
That's everybody's drinking that drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm curious because, now we appreciate Ray for who he was, right? He's this wise, sage, veteran bartender. But back then, and you said it was like 1979, he was just another guy slinging drinks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But by 1984, 85, LA Times ran a piece about him. Santa Monica Evening Outlook was starting to run pieces about the tea and about Ray in particular. Right. And I collected all that stuff because I was interested in this stuff, as you are. And, and he started to, in my mind, get this mythic status before I ever said one word to him. I think the only words I may have said to him over the years were, "Could I have a Navy grog?" Or "How much is that?" And there were a few times when I got more curious about the drinks, when it was a little less crowded, when he'd be in here. Ray would work that station and Mike would be over there.
Yeah, you're right.
And I'd be sitting here. And I'd ask Ray, I'd had a particularly good drink. I don't remember what it might have been, whether a mistake or a Navy grog or Skull and Bones or what have you. And I'd say, "What's in this drink, Ray?" Well, I didn't say Ray. Sir, because I wasn't on a first name basis with him. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. What's in this? And and this is when I found out that this wasn't public knowledge. And he's like, "Rum and fruit juice."
Right.
That's what my dad always said.
Yeah.
"Hey, what's in this? Rum and fruit juice."
I stole that line because people, when they ask me what's in some of the drinks that I make at home, I say the same thing.
Rum and fruit juice.
Yeah.
But do you say it like Ray? You go, "Rum and fruit juice."
Well, that's the thing is, I don't remember. So my impression of Ray is I hear two different things. I hear that he was this gentle guy, and then I also heard that he was a little cantankerous.
I wouldn't say, well, from my point of view, I would not say cantankerous. I would say he was a professional at the top of his game, and he couldn't be bothered by imbeciles, and because people would, say, "Hey, this,
so that could be translated as cantankerous for somebody that doesn't know.
Yeah, maybe? But no, it's a matter of, that
comes in and orders a beer.
Yeah, that disrespects the place. It's like comes in and says, "I want a lava flow," or "This is too sweet," or "I don't like this." You don't say that to Jacques Pepin when you order a dish at his restaurants, and you don't say that to Ray Buhen when you order a zombie at his bar.
Right.
So, but I don't remember. He wasn't intimidating. He was always friendly. He was always smiling. I could not ever say that he was ever cantankerous. He got a little irritated with me and Sven. And rightly so, when we would come in and we just start bugging him with questions about stuff. He's like,
we're going to get to that because I'm curious about all of that. But I want to still revisit that first time that you were here. Do you remember your first drink?
I had a Ray's mistake.
It was
because we got in here. The bar was packed, as it usually is, and it was like standing room only. And we managed to get that table over there in the corner.
Okay.
You guys lucked out.
Yeah, we really lucked out.
Table right there in the corner.
Absolutely, it was like the date table, and we didn't know what to order because you get the menu and there's like 70, 80 drinks on it. You go, "What the hell?" And and somebody said, they saw us looking at the menu, "Get a Ray's mistake." So we got 2 Ray's mistakes, and that was it. That was the beginning.
You see on the menu too, there was no descriptions, just the names.
None whatsoever.
And there still is. I mean, just the names. People ask me. You look at the menu; it is a little intimidating if you don't know what you're looking for.
So they asked me, "Can you help me pick out a drink?" You know, and I think it's kind of part of the fun. You know, it's like
that's what's nice because you meet people because they say, "Well, I don't know what's the name of this drink. There's a name, but what is it? What's in it?" Right away, you have a conversation going.
Yeah.
You know, you're meeting somebody, they're meeting you,
and they're recommending things to you.
Yeah. Now, back then, I know that I had spoken with Augie about some of what it was like back in, maybe fast forward now into the later 80s, early 90s. And I know that at that time, it wasn't as busy as it is today. He was telling me stories about that there would be maybe a half a dozen guys here at the bar, all regulars, and they would basically say, "Hey, Ray, have you tried this? Have you tried that? What if you put this and that together?" I wonder what his thoughts were about that. Like, you know, sometimes people are like, "Oh yeah, buddy, don't tell me how to do my job."
Yeah.
And other times it's like, "What the hell? You know, there's nobody else in here."
Well, you know, I remember that's how we used to, on Mondays, we'd close the place. Actually, that was the day we were closed, and we'd clean the place, and then after we had it all set up, we'd get some ice, and then we'd start experimenting and making new drinks. And my dad would pull out the booze and the mixes and everything. And the one thing when you experiment with a drink, you have to write down what you're doing, because you know, you put lime juice in the drink, and then you put some passion fruit or whatever, then you put some rum, and then you taste it and go, "Yeah, it's good." Write it down. And then you add something else to it and go, "Oh, that's good too." Then you add maybe something else and you go, "Nah, that's not too good."
Yeah.
And you got to exclude that. But down the line, when you come up with something really good, you go, "Great." But if you don't write it down, you go, "Wow, what did I put in this thing?"
Right.
You got to write it down.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying. What I'm curious about too is when Jeff first started coming in here and asking about recipes, right? Especially if you didn't know that all this stuff was secret at first, that must have, I don't know if it angered Ray or if it left some kind of a negative impression.
No, not at all. Because, you know, he let me know right away. Like, all he had to say was rum and fruit juice twice.
Okay.
and then after that was before I met Sven. And then after I met Sven, and we started reading all about the original 1934 zombie, and we were really curious what was in it. The only other time we ever bugged him with a question, because we're just being respectful, because we wanted to come in, have a drink, and not piss anybody off, because we really liked it.
Yeah.
So the only other time we asked him something was when we were really, really curious about the original zombie, because every zombie we'd ever had anywhere in town or anywhere else had always been bad, and it was the most famous drink in its day, so we were trying to figure out, it must have been good at one time. Yeah. And of course the zombie here is good, but we were wondering, we said, "Ray, is this the original 1934 zombie?" And he said, "No, it's not."
Oh, really?
And I said, well,
that's interesting to know.
What's missing? And he goes, "Well," and he was trying to throw us off.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, there's no mint."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, we'll go get some mint. We'll go to Ralph's and get some mint, and we'll be right back." He goes, No. There's other stuff too.
So by this time, you were already doing like research on the recipes and stuff. I mean, how much of that was influenced also by the recipes or the drinks here at Tiki-Ti?
Well, a lot, because I would find old vintage Don the Beachcomber menus from like the 1940s and 50s, and I'd look at the drink names. Then I'd go to the Tiki-Ti and look at the menu, and lo and behold, it'd be like a lot of the same drinks. So I would try the drink, and then I thought that might give me some idea of what the original Beachcomber drink was. But what I didn't know until I actually interviewed Ray and interviewed Mike much later was that those drinks, he'd changed those drinks over time. Like he'd had decades to play around with them and make them his own. You know, they're entirely Buhen drinks. They're not Beachcomber drinks after a certain point.
Right. One of the things that I tell people, because it's funny that you say that, you know, if you come in here and you have a scorpion, it tastes like a scorpion, but it also tastes like a Tiki-Ti drink. Like every cocktail in this bar has a fingerprint. Yeah. So when you say it's a Buhen drink, that completely makes sense to me.
Yeah, there's definitely a through line to almost everything on the menu. The density, the ratio to sweet and sour, the froth, the way they're blended. all that stuff is very consistent from drink to drink, and it's a style. It's the Buhen style, that he developed over how many years.
Well, we're trying to keep the flagship going.
How much has it changed from the beginning, Mike? I mean, as far as the cocktails, has it always been pretty consistent all the way through, or have you had to adapt?
Well, pretty much the same, yeah. I mean, it's gotten busier, and you can't. A lot of places make their in-house flavorings and all that stuff.
Right.
Well, we can't do that because the amount of volume we go through is just like impossible. But other places they make some really good drinks, but that's very, very time consuming to put all that stuff together. So we just can't do it. The volume that this is a small place, and the people that come in and they want to drink, and usually people want to have. They're either going to a show or a concert, movies or whatever. They come in and have a couple drinks, or when the Dodgers are playing, they want to come in before the game or after the game especially. And if they win, they want to party out even more. You just got to pump them out.
Yeah, you have to strike a balance between doing the craft cocktail thing and getting a customer a drink on time.
Right.
You don't want them waiting so long.
Well, yeah. Well, but they have to realize these kind of drinks do take time to make. They're not just like a regular cocktail, or you get a beer or something right away. Big deal. You can make a beer, or a rum and coke or something. But tropical drinks take time because there's a lot of ingredients that go into them.
Right.
So you have to realize that you gotta wait a little while before we can get these things.
So when you started writing the grog log, well, let me ask you. First, what was the catalyst for you to do that?
Well, I would have been, just as like all my other tiki nerd friends were collecting old tiki restaurant matchbooks and menus and tikis and mugs and aloha shirts and everything you could find in thrift stores. I was also collecting recipes. Like I would be looking up old recipe books in the library or trying to find old things in swap meets. Sometimes a menu would have a recipe on it, and I just collected them, and I just was really interested in the drinks, and all that started because places that were serving the drinks were starting to go out of business. Like there was the Bamboo Terrace in Burbank, I think it was, and then there was Kowloon on Pico, and Juan Q also on Pico, I think, and all these places made good drinks, but they're going out of business. And Tiki-Ti and Trader Vic's were the only two that were left standing by the 90s. So I figured, well, if I want to keep drinking these drinks, I might have to learn how to make them myself, and that's what kind of caused me to start collecting recipes along with all the other ephemera.
You didn't have any intent of where you are today. I mean,
no.
Yeah,
no,
it was just about, you just wanted to save them for yourself.
This was a hobby. This was strictly a hobby. I mean, I was strictly an amateur. I had no intention of writing a book or opening a bar or any of that stuff. All I wanted to do was be able to drink these drinks, if I couldn't go to a bar and drink them. So by that time, I'd met Otto von Stroheim and another tiki geek who lived in Venice, and he was a surfer. And he had a lot of surfer friends, and they would do these backyard luau's at his house, the house he was renting. And since I was into drinks, I was the drink guy, and I'd make like a big bowl of punch, some big blue punch or something, And people would come up to me and they'd say, "Hey, this is all right. What's the recipe?" And instead of saying rum and fruit juice, I would tell them, freely give it away. But after a while, let me just so many people were asking that I just went to Kinko's and I took all those recipes I had and I typed them out and I put them in a little Xerox booklet that Otto helped me do. Like he helped me put it together and all that, and went and stapled it and folded it. And the next time Otto had a party, I would just give it out. Oh, you like these things? Here, this is what I know. And
that's awesome.
And one of them found its way up to comic book publisher in San Jose, Slave Labor Graphics. Turned out the guy who ran that liked tiki, and he said, "Hey, you want to put together a little real booklet that we could sell?" And I said, all right. And I was totally passive about it. It wasn't anything I went out and tried to pitch. He put it together, and the only place you could buy it were comic book stores, because he didn't have any. He'd never done any books. He didn't have a book distribution set up. You could go into comic books and get them, which is why I still sometimes comic book geeks come up to me and they say, hey, I found your book and I got into tiki drinks going to the comic book store.
So I got to scour comic book stores now to look for this old book. So, when you were going through that whole process, did Ray become more receptive to helping you out? When he saw what you were doing?
I was too shy and I was too respectful to ask for a recipe because I knew they didn't give them out.
Oh,
I knew,
sure,
I knew it was going to be wrong for you. And I never, when he was alive, I never said, Mr. Buhen, I'm doing this recipe book. Would you be willing to contribute a recipe? It was only Mike years later. I think by the second book in Toxico, we put the Puka Punch in because you gave me that recipe.
Right, yeah.
But because by that time the grog log had come out in Spiral Bound form and I could show it to the guys and Ray had passed on by then, but Mike looked at it and said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll give you, here's some recipes from my dad's book that we don't serve anymore. So it's no harm, no foul. I mean, since we don't serve these, it doesn't matter that you publish. Okay. And that's what the Puka Punch
But
was.
Even still, how do you think Ray would have felt about that, Mike?
I don't think he would be, offended or anything. No, not really.
I mean, even if it was not being served anymore, I mean, it's considered still like a family secret,
Well, yeah, yes and no, because, a lot of those drinks came way back from the 30s and 40s and everything. The object is right now, thanks to Jeff here, Beach Bumberry Jeff, and Martin Kate and Spen, and, you guys are revising this thing now. And that's why this craze is going on with all these tiki bars opening up, and people going in and making their own bars and stuff. Prior to that, there weren't people who were into this stuff. Now it's coming alive, and it's like wildfire.
Yeah,
it's great. I mean, it's all over the world. People are doing this now.
I would say that the grog log. I think it single-handedly changed the way that people look at cocktails and order drinks at bars. Now, I think it was extremely influential.
Wow. Well, I'm not going to argue with you.
And I'm sure nobody else would argue with me. Well, maybe some people would. But, when you look at it that way, right, would you say that, and just erase all being humble and all that, just be honest with your perspective, do you think that the grog log influenced the craft cocktail movement today?
No, the craft cocktail movement was going on.
So would you say that the grog log was influenced by the craft cocktail movement then?
No, because I didn't. Well, it's funny you should say that because it's got to untangle the history here. In the late 90s when the grog log came out, there was a craft cocktail movement going on, but not in LA.
Okay.
It was strictly London and New York, and I didn't know about it. I had no idea.
So the craft cocktail movement didn't influence you to write the grog log?
Not at all, because I had no idea that it even existed until Kevin Kidney and Jody Daly, two other tiki friends of ours, came back from New York and they started talking about this place called the Pegu Club where they had this Earl Grey martini. It was like they made this Earl Grey tea syrup and it was in a martini. It was really good. And they had this tantric sidecar with 5 ingredients, and that was like science fiction to me. It's like they had gone to Mars and had drinks there or something, because LA was still in the dark ages of the cocktail. The only good drinks you could get in LA were tiki drinks, because they were the only ones using fresh citrus and intricate recipes like this. So I would say that short answer, no, the craft cocktail movement did not influence the grog log, and the craft cocktail movement was not influenced by the grog log, because the early 21st century craft cocktail movement, they didn't want to touch tiki with a 10-foot swizzle stick. They didn't want anything to do with tiki. To them, tiki was part of the problem, because like all these young bartenders who were in their 20s and were forging the craft cocktail movement in Chicago, New York, London, they were born in the dark ages. I mean, they had never had a real, culinary craft cocktail tiki drink, which is what these drinks were 70 years before that term existed. These were craft cocktails and right after Prohibition. But they didn't know that. All they knew is what they were like blue or red, slushy, syrupy cruise ship drinks. So they didn't want anything to do with it. And nobody had a blender in their bar. That was considered like totally verboten.
Taboo. Yeah.
So the tiki pop culture revival, which we were all part of, and the craft cocktail revival were running on parallel tracks, and it was like they were not meeting at all.
Okay, all right.
But where it finally started to change, if I had anything to do with it, was at okay, no humbleness, I'll get rid of that. Where it finally started to change was Sippin' Safari when that came out in 2007. Because that
Sippin'
book,
Safari was pivotal.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think more than the Grog-a-Log didn't really change anybody's minds in the craft cocktail community. Sippin' Safari did, because that was like the first real book with real text, and it had the Beachcomber recipes in it. The first time I cracked the actual Beachcomber recipes, and craft cocktail bartenders, guys like Brian Miller in New York and Alex Mazuris in London, they got a hold of the book and it's like, oh wow, this is what we're into. This is the same thing.
The history written in that book is really great.
Thank you.
So it's awesome that you're releasing that or reissuing that book.
Yeah.
Because there has been this growth since the first time it was released, and it was off people's radar because it was released before that growth.
Right.
And so now that this growth is really taken shape, it's great to put that back in front of people and have them read that history again.
That was the idea, because when it came out in 2007, the Tiki drink revival had not taken off the way it did, like shortly after that book. In the 10 years since that book, we've had what you're talking about, that global explosion of tiki bars everywhere. And it was good to have an opportunity to look back at that book and add to it and put it in context of the last 10 years and all that. So,
now, Mike, would you say that since the release of these books that you've seen a change in the clientele that comes into the bar?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Because a lot of people, they're getting into this tropical stuff, and they go, yeah. A lot of younger people.
This is what
too.
I'm saying. This is why I believe that it was pivotal in changing the way that people look at and order tropical cocktails. Because 20 years ago, people were still ordering strawberry daiquiris and thinking that was a tropical cocktail, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays, nobody orders a strawberry daiquiri. At least none of the bars that I go to. And if you did, you'd kind of be looked down upon.
Well, but I still go to a Mexican restaurant and I get a strawberry margarita.
Sure.
Yes, because they make them usually. The place we go to, they make them really good. So I always like to have a strawberry margarita.
I have no judgment about ordering what you like.
Yeah.
I mean, if you like it, you like it. But I just think that with the rise of the craft tropical drink, it has changed the way that people look at ordering a tropical cocktail.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Sure.
It's really weird to go into a tiki bar and be sitting there, and the person next to you will say to the bartender, do you do a 3 dots and a dash? And it's like what the, because in 2007 nobody knew what that was. Yeah. It's like
yeah, we have people come in and they go, hey, can you make that 3 dots and a dash? And they go, yeah, sure, okay.
Yeah.
They obviously they've had it, before, or they just want to try it.
Yeah.
They heard about it.
If you have a product, service, or event that you'd like to bring attention to, we can help. Imagine hearing your ad in this spot, just like you're hearing this one right now. Sponsor an episode and get the exposure you deserve. For more information, go to desertoasisroom.com and click on Services.
So, when I was coming here in the early 2000s and Jeff was just another LA regular at this bar, he would sit on one end, I'd sit on the other end, or, we were just all in the same room. We weren't really like chummies, but we were all still Tiki-Ti regulars, as, the Tiki-Ti regulars has its own little groups within it as well, right? What did you think about that, Mike, that this growth that Jeff has gone through now? He's got his own bar. Did you ever see that happening?
No, well,
isn't that cool?
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Oh, you were telling me that you were trying to, open up a place in New Orleans there, and you were having a rough time with the city and just trying to get in the nucleus of the place, and and then it's great where you found that place. That the people that were there were leaving, and it opened up, and then you got in there. It was great.
One of the proudest moments in my life was when Mike Buhen walked into Latitude 29,
Yeah.
and it's just like the guy who inspired that,
Right?
you know. And it's just like there he
Come
is,
on, no.
there he is
Like-
ordering a drink, you know. It's like
I was there a few months ago. You remember that? And,
Yeah.
and I walked in. I'm like, wow, check this place out, man. Jeff is moving. Yeah,
That's great. Hey,
full circle.
pretty cool,
full
right?
circle.
I mean, if I still lived here, I'd just be coming here. There'd be no need for me to open a bar, you know.
Well, for our listeners that don't know, so we're recording this before your book signing.
Yeah.
We're here for the Sippin' Safari 10th anniversary book signing and release and all that kind of fun stuff. What is different about this issue than the previous, the first release?
Well, it's all about what's happened in the 10 years since. Like, there are 14 new old recipes, like previously unpublished vintage recipes that in 2007 I didn't know how to decode. I couldn't figure out how to read the bartender's shorthand, or they were cut for space, or I found them after the book came out. So every good recipe I found since then, and every recipe that I was able to figure out how to make and all that, all those new vintage recipes are in the book. The other part is this 40-page afterword, which talks about what happened in the 10 years after the book came out, like this whole tiki revival. And I asked some of the leading lights, you know, people like Paul McGee and Martin Cade and all these people, did the book if the book influenced you, how did it influence you, and could you give me a recipe? And so the afterword is all about like how everybody took that and ran with it. And then there's my favorite part of the book, though, is the foreword, the new foreword. It's about almost 30, 40 pages, and it's about what led up to the writing of Sippin' Safari, and it tells a lot of the stories that we just discussed today about how I got into all this nonsense and what led to the writing of the book and all that. And then, of course, there's all kinds of new eye candy, like all kinds of new old vintage photographs and stuff like that.
It feels like such a different book.
It's an entirely different book.
Yeah, I mean, like, when I first got it, I was reading it every night before bed, and it felt like a completely different book. I had to go out and get my original copy of Sippin' Safari because I wanted to compare. I thought, this can't be the same book, you know, and it has a different look and feel.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that because that was the idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, I mean, that's great. You know, it's like, I'm glad you put out another one, you know, and you added on to the original one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good to see chapter 1 about the Tiki-Ti, about Ray and Mike in hardcover with like a lot of new graphics. So.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what is the future of your brand, Jeff? And also I want to ask the same thing for Mike because, I mean, you're what, 6 books in now?
7.
Seven.
If you count
7.
Sippin' 2. Yeah.
Okay, 7. And so where do you go from there?
I'm kind of written out, man. I got nothing else to say, you know. So I think I'm going to be a saloon keeper for as long as that works. You know?
And what I'm pushing towards when I'm alluding to Mike, right, the future of the Tiki-Ti is like, now let me start by saying this. So the whole generational thing of, you know, owning a business and passing it down to the next generation, then to the next generation, you don't really see that anymore.
Yeah.
But you have that here in the Tiki-Ti. And what I don't think Mike realizes is of the last legendary bartenders, you know, that existed, he's like the last guy, and he's still bartending, right? So he's a living legend. I don't think he'd see his reaction.
Come on. Living legend.
I don't think he
Come on, you're
realizes
stretching it. Come on.
I know it's radio, so for the benefit of our listeners, Mike is a shade of red I've never seen before right now.
Right? So
Man, come on.
He's as red as grenadine right
Living
now.
legend.
he really is. I mean, like, so this was a guy that was mixing in the heyday, that was mixing with Ray, right? Where when all these recipes were gone, he was making them, right? So,
Yeah,
and he's
well,
still mixing today.
Actually, when the Tiki opened up in '61, everything in here, my dad did it. I mean, you cut the bamboo, put down the 2x4s, 2x8s, put the tappa cloth on, the bamboo, the cork, the waterfall. My dad did it all. I helped him and a couple other guys, but he did basically it all, you know, and I was just there helping him, you know, cutting something and, you know, screwdriver and stuff in and nailing things in, but he did it all. Actually, my dad, if he wasn't going to be a bartender, he could have been a contractor, because if you gave him nail, screwdriver, 2x4, 2x8, he went to town. He loved to build things.
You guys built the house behind the bar.
Yeah, he did that too.
Yeah.
I mean, he was.
A lot of people
amazing.
don't know that.
Yeah. I got to tell you another story. That my dad, I don't know how he did this, but when he was bartending, he went to Hollywood High School and he took a course in upholstery. And this was at nighttime during the day. At night, he bartended. And after he got the degree, he got a job working at Angela's Furniture Company making upholstery down there. And it was like, wow, it's amazing, and that was a full-blown, company making all kinds of furniture. And he was, doing that. He had 2 jobs. During the day, he worked there. At night, he'd bartend, and he would come in here, like we had our old stools and thing, and he, rather than send them out, he'd go, hell, I'll get the Naugahyde and he did that. He repaired them and reupholstered everything. And he made a lot of other stuff. I wish we had, my son Mike has a futon in his garage that the only thing that we saved that my dad made, because he made a lot of things, but through the years things got messed up and we didn't
Wear
take care of it.
It's a busy
we ended
bar.
up throwing it away.
Yeah.
But I mean, he just amazed me. Like, he went and became an upholsterer. It was like, that was a lot of work.
Yeah.
To go to school and learn that, and then he was a full-fledged upholsterer.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, this guy his work ethic was just like amazing.
Yeah.
And like I said, he built everything in here. Like, geez, right, that's a lot of work. But he loved to do things.
So, when I brought up future of Tiki-Ti, I want to put this seed in your head. So, what I think is really great about what Jeff did is a lot of these recipes would have died with these bartenders if he didn't document them. And I always wonder about that, right? Like, my grandma makes this great dish, and when she dies, unless I document it, it goes away forever, and no one ever gets to enjoy that dish again. What about the cocktails here? There's so many that are unique to this bar. Have you ever thought, and I'm sure it is documented, right? I saw that, I even got to hold Ray's little black book. I mean, what an honor, right?
Yeah,
I even got to take a picture with it, right?
Yeah.
With a page open, And then Mike was thumbing through it going, yeah, see, and I'm like in my head going, trying to take pictures of each of those recipes.
Yeah, that
but
was,
I mean, like, have you ever thought about, like Trader Vic's, he documented a lot of his recipes in his books. Have you ever thought about doing that in the future?
Yeah, actually, my son and his wife, they're thinking about maybe putting together some kind of documentation and maybe in a book. I don't know. They want to do something. So I go, great.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That'd be neat.
We just clicked over 57 years here, and one day at a time. Hopefully, we're going to make it to our 60th. By that time, I probably will say I might want to just take it a little bit easier because in June 1st, I hit my 72 year.
Yeah.
So, most people are already retired by now, but I'm not. Just keep on plugging.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you both for your time and sitting down with the show again.
All right. Well, hey.
Old veterans of the podcast, thank you so
Adrian,
much.
well,
I appreciate it. I really do. I appreciate it.
No.
Thank you.
No, it's an honor, too, because the man, the legend is
Right.
here, man. Jeff Beachcomber.
Oh, please.
come
Now
on.
I'm red. Now I'm red.
And I'm excited for Jeff.
No,
we got a big day in front of
If it
us.
wasn't for this man and Sven and
Yeah,
Martin Kate,
yeah.
actually the 3 guys, you guys have actually spearheaded all this stuff that's coming around now, and it's great.
Yeah. So
Gotta
yeah, I'm
keep it
excited.
going.
I'm
Okay.
excited for
All
Jeff, and I'm excited for me because I have, I think, all 7 books and a double of the Grog Log, and I can't believe I never had them signed before. And so they're sitting on a table here, so I'm
Well,
going to have
you-
Jeff sign them for me. And
You're going to have writer's cramp tonight.
And I got to warn you, Adrian, as soon as I sign them, they're going to decrease in value. But
and I highly doubt that.
The resale
Maybe
goes
what you
down.
should do is get a rubber stamp made of your signature, like what they do at the bank when they
Yeah,
stamp the
stamp.
checks, right?
Rejected.
It'll make things easier, right? But thanks again, you guys. Before we wrap up, I want to give a plug to both of your businesses. Why don't we start with Jeff? Why don't we tell people how they can get a hold of where they can find your bar and where they can find your social media?
Yeah, it's called Beach Bum Berries Latitude 29. It's I think the Instagram is latitude29nola.com, and there's a website for the restaurant and Facebook page and all that. So yeah, just Google Beach Bum Berries Latitude 29. You'll find all the info. And we're in the French Quarter of New Orleans. So if you're ever in town for any festival of any kind or just to get hammered, consider us.
And it doesn't take much to get hammered in that bar.
Right. We make short work of you.
And Mike, Tiki-Ti?
Tiki-Ti is 4427 Sunset Boulevard, 927. We're on just this side of, actually, Hollywood Boulevard starts in the next block, but we're still on Sunset. And that's it, you know.
Yeah.
Well, actually, our website is Tiki-Ti, T-I-K-I-T-I.
Tiki-T.
Yeah.
Tiki-T.
1961 @gmail.com.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. All right.
Sure.
Well, let's do a last cheers, you guys. I'm going to
Okay.
grab mine out. And we're doing a cheers with
Cheers.
beer bottles.
Yeah, hey.
So
All right.
for the people that want to know what we're actually drinking, we're drinking beer,
Right.
right? This is a privilege in the Tiki-Ti. So
No beer here.
no beer here. So don't come and ask for a beer.
Yeah.
We ain't giving you
You get a
one.
beer anywhere. You don't get
Right.
tropical drinks everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we're drinking beer because we can.
That's
So, there you
right.
go.
We can.
Thank you guys. Cheers and aloha. And if you guys have any questions, comments, or just want to leave a shout out, check us out on Facebook on our group page, Inside the Desert Oasis Room. You can find us on Instagram at Polynesian Pop. And if you want to listen to previous episodes or try to get on a future episode, come to the website desertoasisroom.com. Thank you, Mike and Jeff.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Cheers. Aloha.
All right. Aloha.